guess we'll get going, especially so we don't interrupt people's bedtime routines. So hello everyone. So I'm Luke. I'm the head of communication.
Yes.
At TSA. As I say, I can see some familiar faces amongst everyone, and yeah, we've got a great turnout today. Sleep is of course something everyone can relate to. There's nothing better than a good night's sleep. Sometimes it can make you feel so much better as and when it happens. And in the times there's nothing worse as well as when you can't get to sleep for whatever reason. Of course, in the TSA community, it's even more of an issue for many people with issues relating to the condition, meaning that it can be difficult to get a good night's sleep. So we're delighted to have with us today Kerry Davies from the Sleep Charity. Hello, Kerry.
Hi.
I'll just go through some quick housekeeping before I'll stop talking, and then you can hear from Kerry, who everyone is really here for. Let's be honest. So as I say, quick housekeeping first of all. It's just to say that you're all on mute to start off with. It's just to help manage the session really. Otherwise, it gets quite loud overall, or you can hear different people. If you do want to ask a question, if you can wait towards the end, that would be great, because we will have some time for a Q&A part of the session. So if you do, just unmute yourself, and then we'll go accordingly. This session has been recorded as well, so if you would prefer not to be included in the recording, I do ask that you just take yourself off the video and mute yourself. If you would prefer to ask a question or whatnot, and still prefer not to be part of the recording, that's fine. You can do that, but afterwards just let me know your name, the question that you asked, and things like that, and we'll take you off the recording. And the final bit is just to say that this is very much an open and welcoming area. Please do feel free to join in, and feel free to get involved as much as you like. This should be very much an area that you can sort of be yourself. We all understand the impact of what TSC can have on individuals and families, so please don't be shy. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Kerry. I'll put myself on mute, and so yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to Kerry.
Hi, I'm Kerry from the Sleep Charity. So I'm a sleep practitioner. I've been a sleep practitioner for nearly 10 years now, and I've worked for local authority for 8.5 of those years within a sleep service, which is pretty postcode lottery. So I think there's only about 5 counties that have sleep services within them. So I was fortunate enough to spend 8.5 years doing that. And I left in April last year, and I've been doing some freelance work for the Sleep Charity. So I have a presentation prepared. So I need to be made host, Luke, to share my presentation.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. That's my fault. I've got the settings wrong on the thing who can share. Okay, you should be able to do it now. Fingers crossed.
Look. Yeah, there we
go. Lovely.
Okay. Need to make sure I've got the right one, because I've been doing some other training today as well. But this is it. Okay. Okay. So, practical strategies to improve sleep, which is what all you guys want, don't you? So what can we actually do about it? So what I'll cover in this session is an overview of our work and the importance of sleep, why sleep issues may occur, particularly now during this time of lockdown and COVID-19, and practical ideas that you can try. So the background to our work. So Vicky, who's the CEO of the Children's Sleep Charity, she was once a sleep-deprived mum, and that's kind of that was her drive to setting up the sleep charity back in 2012, I think it was. We use an evidence-based approach, behavioural approach to sleep, and identify strategies kind of through assessments made for families. We do offer specialist support for children and young people. So research shows that behavioural sleep problems are common in children with SEN. And children with sleep problems are more likely to be very inattentive, hyperactive, and very impulsive. And these issues affect everyone in the family. So where we have a sleep deprived young person, we have a sleep deprived parent, you know, and it really does have massive, massive consequences on the whole family. So behavioural approach can significantly improve sleep patterns in most cases. So not all, but in most. It normally takes a minimum of 2 weeks to see change. Sometimes it doesn't take as long, but usually you have to give it a good 2-week period to make sure that it's working. Everybody is an individual, so there's no kind of set sleep routine that's going to work. So I couldn't give you all exactly the same thing today. I can give you some tips and strategies, but the same thing isn't going to work for every single person here, because we are an individual and we need to take that into account. Consistency is absolutely key. So doing the same thing over and over, sometimes it might feel, especially in the first few days of implementing change, it can feel like, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but having that consistent approach, you normally see lots of benefits, you know, of doing it. So consistency definitely for the first 2 weeks. And finding the right time to implement any kind of sleep changes for you as a family. So, you know, if you've got, I don't know, a holiday booked or a really busy week at work, that might not be the right time for you to implement those sleep changes. So actually figuring out in your family life, when is this going to be appropriate for you to kind of start doing it? So is it better to wait until the weekend? Is it better to wait until August the 2nd because you've got a week booked off work? So it's all about finding the right time for you, because there isn't a magic wand, you know, to make sleep better. So there was a study carried out, if anybody does want to kind of look this up, it was carried out with Sheffield Hospital and the Sleep Charity, and this was based on children with additional needs. They used a behavioural approach to sleep and conducted, I think it was a 4-week intervention with a sleep practitioner. Now at the end, so they measured the sleep pre-intervention and post-intervention. And on average, participants gained an extra 2.4 hours per night of sleep, which is just absolutely massive. And I've been doing a course today where we were looking at the research into medication around sleep, which improves sleep by, I think it was 50 minutes or something. So the behavioural approach definitely is a better approach for improving sleep. So these were the things. So, you know, when research is conducted, usually what they're looking at is stats and figures and numbers, you know, in order to get budgets and to get funding. But with this study, what they looked at is actually the stuff that's important really to you guys, the stuff that has a really big impact on you. So, you know, what was the mood of the child like pre this intervention? So what was your everyday like? Because this stuff is important, you know, it's not just about how much extra sleep, it's about what you're living with day in, day out. So as you can see from some of the words, you know, grumpy, in a bad mood, shouting, aggressive, hyperactive, which often comes hand in hand with sleep, being really difficult to wake, groggy, increased aggression, reluctance to get up in the morning, agitated, hostile, you know, really negative words actually attached to this pre-intervention stuff and the mood of the child. So post-intervention, these were the kind of words that were coming up. So better mood than before. So, you know, we're we're not saying that you're going to go from having, you know, a grumpy child who's absolutely shattered and sleep deprived to someone who is, you know, jumping through the sky and feeling amazing. But improvements, you know, just making day-to-day life easier. So happy, pleasant, sometimes still moody, but less fighting, less tired. All right, we've got that. I don't know who said that, but they feel all right after it, which is better than not feeling all right. Happy. Yeah, so things definitely improved. There was still, you know, still some grumpiness in there post intervention, but it was generally on the whole much better. So the other thing that was tested, again, a lot of the research is around children, the effects of sleep on children, and there hasn't been an awful lot of research into the effects on parents, which we know is absolutely prevalent. So this is what they did with this study. So feeling isolated, you know, pre the intervention, pre the sleep, this was massive. You know, so many people feel isolated by sleep, feeling stressed out. This is definitely something that I see with families that I work with, you know, dreading that bedtime, fearing the bedtime and feeling really stressed out at bedtime, after bedtime, and when it's time to relax, you know, when it's time to unwind. Relationship with your child with the sleeping difficulty, this can often be affected by sleep, because it's really hard not to resent somebody that's preventing you from getting a good night's sleep. And you know, the symptoms of sleep deprivation are prevalent in parents as much as they are in children. Relationship with other family members is affected, and that's inside the house and external family members as well. That's often affected, and that can be because you're withdrawing from spending time with other family members, or they might be a little bit overbearing and really want to help out, or not want to help out at all because your child isn't sleeping very well, which can cause a lot of issues. Relationships with partners, always, I'd say 9 times out of 10, relationship with partners is affected by sleep, because we just are more ratty when we're tired. Driving, I just recently, a couple of weeks ago, did a course on adult sleep, and I was astounded by this. So you are 6 times more likely to have an accident when you are sleep deprived than when you are drink driving. So you're more likely, 6 times more likely to have an accident when you're tired, as opposed to drunk. And general falls and trips and being injured is higher as well in adults that are sleep deprived. So this is something just to share with you guys. Feels a bit negative, doesn't it? But it's important, you know, that you know this stuff, and actually it is about you as much as it is about your children as well. So this was just a quote. So more support than I ever expected. I've been asking for support since the age of 2 and have struggled for years unsupported and not being listened to. The program's been amazing, life-changing, and just love being listened to and believed. And this is really, really frequent. There's lots of families out there that have had sleep issues for years and years and years, but there is just nowhere to signpost these families to. And there's, you know, has been very little advice around sleep out there. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that we see in children that are sleep deprived. So hyperactivity is like center red, because that's one of the most common things that we see in children that are sleep deprived. We expect children to be tired when they've not had much sleep, but actually it goes the opposite way. Very irritable. Sleep is directly linked to depression as well. So there has been a direct link founded. Anxiety, it can increase anxiety and attachment issues. Mental health, so the Sleep Charity have actually launched a manifesto in the Houses of Parliament, which I went along to pre-lockdown, so it's February time, and the Mental Health Foundation CEO was there doing a talk, and he said it's the second most common cause of mental health issues. Sleep is the second underneath. So the only thing that tops it is addiction, and that's addiction across the board. So, you know, this is having a massive impact on people's well-being and mental health. Concentration is affected by sleep, and that will affect attainment and the ability to learn as well. So couple that with a child that finds it difficult to learn, and add kind of sleep deprivation into the mix, and it's a bit of a concoction. And behaviour issues, increased aggression is very, very common. I mean, there's loads more, but I won't talk about every single one. Okay, so this is going into a bit more of the sciencey stuff around our sleep. So the circadian rhythm, has anyone heard of the circadian rhythm? Is it a term that you're used to? So it's our internal sleepy body clock, basically. Now, this clock ticks, our internal imaginary clock, ticks at around 24 hours and 11 minutes, which is marvellous because the clock that we work towards is just 24 hours. So naturally, we're always going to be out of sync to our internal body clock. So what can we do about that? So our body clock relies really, really heavily on environmental cues. So it relies heavily on what we tell it to do. It learns from our behaviour what it should be doing and when. Light and dark are the biggest contributing factors to our circadian rhythm and getting our circadian rhythm working as well as it should be. So dimming lights in the evening, particularly at the moment because it's summer, so ensuring lights are dimmed at the same time each night will help the body to understand, okay, so I should be producing melatonin, which is our sleepy hormone, and then daylight exposure in the morning at the same time will help the body to suppress that melatonin and release cortisol, which kickstarts our day and gets our day going. Okay. So there is the changes in internal body temperature will continue even when the environmental cues are removed, but we do rely really, really heavily on environmental cues. So I would say that is kind of paramount. The other thing that which isn't on this slide, is food times as well. So the times in which we eat breakfast, lunch and dinner can really help to set this circadian rhythm. So for example, I eat a breakfast at about 11. I don't eat breakfast when I wake up in the morning. I haven't for years. My body will not tell me that I'm hungry until about 11 when I eat breakfast. Whereas other people, if you get up and eat breakfast at 7:30, your body, when you wake up, your stomach will start rumbling and it will tell you. And that's kind of an indication that your circadian rhythm is working effectively. Okay. Regular sleep wake times are essential. So having a regular sleep time and wake time every single day is essential, and that includes weekends. What I found a lot in practice is, particularly with teenagers, they tend to have a shift in their body clock, which is later on in the slides, which means that they fall asleep and they have a kind of biological sleep delay that can occur in puberty, which means that their sleep onset time is later. And obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, so it is a little bit different. But if your teenager was getting up at, say, 7 o'clock Monday to Friday for school, but not falling asleep at 2 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning, but then on a Saturday and Sunday was kind of catching up with that sleep, that causes confusion to the circadian rhythm. So 7 days a week, it's really important that the sleep wake times are really structured. Naps can be appropriate for preschool children. Generally, naps are cut out between the age of 2 and 3, and you can usually tell when naps need to be cut out because the bedtime will be much later when they've had a nap in comparison to a day when they perhaps haven't had a nap. School transport, which is probably relevant to a lot of you guys, because some children can be on school transport for an hour and a half and then fall asleep on transport. So always check for that, because that will impact on the night time. So definitely be aware of what's happening during school transport time. As I just said about teenagers, and some children with ADHD as well, release melatonin later on than you would expect as being age appropriate, and that can shift their sleep pattern. But we'll talk about what you do about that later on in the slides. let me know if you can. There's a chat box, so if you want to let me know any questions in the chat box, if you've got them, and then Luke, if you wouldn't mind, just like letting me know, and then we can answer them.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, so melatonin, the hormone of darkness. It sounds very Cruella. It's not. It's a beautiful thing. So it's a naturally occurring hormone which is produced by the pineal gland in the brain. Okay, it's controlled by the circadian clock. So it's controlled by those cues that we give it. So when we give it the cues, so it's darkness now, right, I need to start giving you some melatonin to help you fall asleep. So what should happen, doesn't always, because some teenagers, I don't know about all your children, but some teenagers can be completely nocturnal. But what should happen is that melatonin levels rise at night time. And then as we go through the sleep cycle, they kind of peter off and they get lower and lower. Lots of children are prescribed melatonin, and the administration of melatonin can really help to shift that circadian rhythm, particularly if light is absent. So children with visual impairments can really benefit from this. Screen activities can absolutely disrupt the production of melatonin, partly because of the blue light. So the blue light suppresses melatonin, and partly because screen activities are designed to keep our attention, which means that they are very busy, and our brain is very busy when we're watching them. When we are very busy, the pineal gland is located quite deep within the brain structure, so melatonin's got quite a long way to travel out. So if you can imagine the brain is super busy, it's going to have a tougher job to get out there in large enough quantities. Okay, so the sleep cycle. So this is what a standard typical night's sleep will look like to most of us over the age of about 2. So prior to the age of 2, sleep cycles are much shorter, much more rapid up and down, and babies have a lot more dream sleep. And this is because dream sleep primarily is functioning on emotions and memories, and babies have got a lot to learn, obviously, a lot more than as we get older. So from the top, so we are awake, and that indicates when you're in bed with your eyes closed, kind of ready to go to sleep. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get down into your first stage of sleep. Then that is very light sleep, so you can be very, very easily woken during stage 1 of sleep. Then we go head down into stage 2 of sleep, which again it's a deeper sleep, but you can still be woken fairly easily. And then down into our stage 3 of sleep. So stage 3 is slow wave sleep. So this is where you're in your deep sleep cycle. Then we have a little bit of REM sleep. So the REM is all highlighted in red. And then we go back down into our deep sleep. So as you can see, there's no real high peaks in that first block of sleep. So the first block of sleep, which is about 3.5 to 4 hours, is our first deep sleep cycle. It's uncommon for children to wake during that deep sleep cycle. When children do wake during that first cycle, it tends to be a parasomnia, so it would be a night terror or sleepwalking. So that occurs, night terrors, sleepwalking occur within the first 4 hours of sleep only. So as you can see, there's a big kind of spike at about 3.5 hours. Now that is a partial awakening. So we all have them. It's a normal part of our sleep process. And what we tend to do during our partial awakening is subconsciously check our environment to make sure that we're safe. So it's like a primary instinct to make sure that we're safe. Often conditions around falling to sleep initially have changed, that is what then causes children to wake up fully through the night. And as you can see, these partial awakenings occur throughout the rest of the sleep cycle. So another little fact for you. So at 3.5 hours, as you can see, there's a little bit of REM sleep, pre-natural waking. This is where, here and then later on where the REM and wake, this is where you're most likely to have what's known as sleep paralysis. So when we're in our dream sleep state, we are paralyzed. So the only thing that can move are our can't say our eyes, that was a bit of a mouthful, and our breathing muscles. Okay, so obviously we're kept alive when we're dreaming, but we can't move any of our bigger muscles, and that's the safety mechanism, because otherwise we'd be able to act out our dreams, which is a very rare sleep condition, because nobody really wants to be acting out their dreams. It can be quite dangerous. But it's where you get stuck. And so when you're coming up to your nighttime waking, so you get stuck in the paralyzation of your dream sleep, but you're actually in your night waking. So that's what sleep paralysis is. So it's nothing really massively to panic about. Does that make sense to everybody? When I did this hypnogram, like when I did my training nearly 10 years ago, I was like, oh my goodness me, why does nobody tell you this stuff? Because that is like light bulb moment. So we wake, I mean, who knew? We wake up during the night. Okay, why sleep issues may be more prevalent, so not common, more prevalent really due to COVID-19, which is massively relevant now. So changes in routine is definitely having an impact. So losing school, after school clubs is absolutely having a huge impact. And even on, I've got 2 children myself, and even on my own children, I noticed such a big difference in their sleep, probably a couple of weeks into lockdown, because it took us a while to be able to find some kind of routine that even worked, you know, for us, you know, because we're not used to being at home 24 hours a day with each other and not allowed to go out and see anybody else, you know, so it took a while to get into that. Lack of exercise as well. So we need something called sleep pressure to help us to fall asleep. So if you imagine you've got a bucket, okay, and you've got your tap on and it's filling up your bucket throughout the day, I'm trying to represent sleep pressure, okay? So we fill up the bucket all day. If we have a little nap, you can pour a bit of your water out. So, you know, like them swingy things that you get at the swimming pools, you pour a bit of your water out. So then we have to kind of start again and start building our sleep pressure again. What exercise does, it adds to that bucket. So it helps you to be able to fall asleep more easily at nighttime. And definitely with children kind of being away from school, being away from their peers, daytime movement has decreased. And that was definitely a thing with my children, and they ended up going to bed an hour and a half later, each of them, an hour and a half later than they would have normally when they were at school, because I just can't be a whole group of children and do the same thing as children do, you know, keeping them moving. More screen time. So, you know, if you're working from home and you've got to do a meeting or you've got to do a call, we're using screens more, you know, because we've kind of got to get through this, you know, get through this new way of kind of living. So that's definitely impacted on sleep. Not as much exposure to natural daylight, and certainly not having, so, you know, being out of the house at say 8 o'clock in the morning on a school day, all we need is 4 minutes of daylight exposure to help really reduce our melatonin levels and kickstart that cortisol. So children would have naturally been getting that when they were going to school. But because we're not going out and going to school, chances are you're not going to get up and go into the garden, you know, when you get up in the morning or the same time. So that would decrease the amount of natural daylight that we need to kind of wake ourselves up. Definitely anxiety increasing. There's a lot of questions around COVID and is everyone going to be safe and why has everything changed for me? You know, it's had a big impact. But for some who do get quite stressed out by school, sleep has actually been really improved in this period. So there are some people, I'm guessing if you're on here, it's probably not you, but there are some people that sleep has really improved. Okay, so why is your child kind of struggling to sleep? So it's really key to work out what could be the cause for your child's sleep disruptions. There are lots and lots of potential reasons for sleep being affected, and you can't select the right strategies if you don't really know why it's occurring. Okay, so identifying the triggers. So these are some of the most common triggers, okay, around why sleep can be difficult. So any sensory issues that your child may have. So if your child likes to be quite contained, so, you know, when they're feeling quite stressed, do they go into small spaces and like to feel, you know, quite contained? Maybe using a double quilt on a single bed and really tucking them in, or pajamas that are too small for them might give them that same sensation. Are they very aware of external noises? So when they go to bed, there's like a natural daytime hum going on downstairs, or there might be cars going past, and if they're kind of really sensory aware that of all these little noises that we perhaps don't really think about or even hear, that's then going to change when they have these partial awakenings. So being aware of those things. Are they resistant to bedtime? So do they not want to go to bed? Is that the issue for your child? And as parents, your capacity to make change. So what can you realistically do? So where are you right now, and what can you realistically do? Because sometimes just breaking it down and working on one area at a time can be much more effective than trying to tackle the whole thing. Any medical issues? So are they, you know, not comfortable when they go to sleep? Are they taking medication that prevents them from sleeping? Are they taking medication throughout the night? These are all questions. And one thing that comes up a lot is kind of issues with bowels. That can have a really big impact because it can be so uncomfortable and so difficult to sleep. Hyperactivity indicating that they don't need sleep. Children will often fight against sleep as well. So when they feel melatonin coming out and they don't like the feeling of it, I often hear like, you know, coming up to bedtime, oh my God, they go bonkers, they're jumping around, they're spinning, they're doing all these, and what that can sometimes be, that hyperactivity can be them actually fighting their melatonin. So getting themselves overtired would be the term that's commonly used. So have they got a delayed sleep phase? So are you trying to put them to bed at 8 o'clock? Because that's the right time for their age, but actually they had never fallen asleep until 10:30, and they haven't done for 7 months. Because all you've got then really is 2.5 hours of stored up energy. So it is going to be a stressful time, and you will spend all that time trying to get them back to bed, because actually their body isn't releasing melatonin and isn't telling them they're tired until 10:30. Looking at the environment as well, this is a big thing. So what we want, ideally, going back to that hypnogram, is an environment that stays exactly the same from the moment that the child goes into bed to every partial waking. So being really savvy and really aware of that sleep environment. So is there cars, or do you live on a main road, and is there cars going past your house? Are the children 3 doors down playing in the garden until 10:30 at night and being really noisy? Does the man over the road have a Subaru that he goes out in at 10 o'clock at night, and, you know, the exhaust is really loud? Is the washing machine on? Are you putting the kettle on? Is the TV on downstairs? Can you hear that hum of downstairs kind of stuff going on? This is really, really important, and stabilising that environment so that it remains exactly the same all night can be the key to kind of solving this. So I always recommend, if your child is really sensory aware, is waking up frequently during the night, using some white noise or some pink noise and playing it the whole way through the night, so that environment is completely consistent, will rule out all of this stuff that could be interrupting them. Is the bed comfortable? That's another thing. I recently had a little girl who was in a cot. She was 2.5, so it was, you know, it was age appropriate, a cot bed, but actually she slept completely starfish. So she was never going to be comfortable in that cot because she couldn't spread her arms and legs out. Parents bought her a double bed, and within a week she was sleeping, you know. So it's about really checking those things. Diet and hunger as well. can impact on sleeping at night. So are they hungry? Have they got a restricted diet during the day? Are they eating more sugary foods, in the lead up to bedtime? So sleepy foods. These ideally should be offered about an hour before your child is naturally falling to sleep. So these foods can contain something called tryptophan, which converts to melatonin in the brain. So they're high in tryptophan. If your child is restricting their diet or is on a restricted diet, it's sometimes and is kind of very busy in their sleep, so moving around a lot in their sleep, very restless, it's worth getting iron levels checked out for something called restless leg syndrome. And it does require a blood test, that's the only thing. But it is worth, if your child is particularly busy through the night and thrashing about. This restless leg syndrome can really affect the quality of the sleep in which children are getting. So they might be getting a good quantity, but if the quality is affected, they will feel as bad as if they'd had 4 hours sleep. So any slow release carbohydrates are good for given as a supper about an hour before bed, and like cereal, Weetabix and porridge are really good. They're like firm favourites. Milk, warm preferably, or water pre-bed. No sugar or caffeine from kind of late afternoon. Any dairy products, or soya alternatives, bananas, lettuce, and if anyone fancies a bit of turkey about an hour before bed can be affected. That's got tryptophan in too. And research suggests cherry juice, which somebody on a course I did a little while ago, because I was like, I don't really see cherry juice in the supermarkets, but apparently the Polish, there's quite a lot of Polish shops, and they have a huge variety of cherry juices within them that are really reasonably priced. So I think a lot of the supermarkets are a lot more expensive. So yeah, cherry juice is a good one. So developing a good routine. So this is pre-bed sleep hygiene stuff. So deciding on who's going to carry it out, at what time is it going to begin, where does everything happen, and what does it consist of? Okay, so they're kind of the 4 questions that you want to ask yourself about developing this routine. So plan for an hour before sleep time. So not an hour before bedtime, an hour before sleep time. So it's really important that you get that bang on, because otherwise you're kind of setting yourself up to fail. Any routine that you do, if it isn't in line with the circadian rhythm and where it's set, is going to fail. There's no kind of quick fire way to get it sorted, really. So starting with a supper time, and prior to supper, this would be where you would remove electronics or turn electronics off, and even like having a TV on in the background can be really distracting to the brain. So having like a quieter environment. If your child relies quite heavily or really likes noise, it finds it difficult to be in quiet, definitely use some, swap over to some music or maybe an audiobook or something. So you can have some noise on, but it's more the overload of the visual and auditory at the same time. Dim the lights as well now. So what we want to do is give the brain as many indicators that bedtime is coming as we possibly can. So we're like bombarding it to produce this melatonin. Hand-eye coordination activities for around 30 minutes, and this is where sometimes we have to be quite creative with what we do, can really help to wind the brain down, so to calm the brain down, which allows melatonin to be released in really large quantities and make you feel sleepy. And I kid you not, in the 9.5 years that I've done this, most parents, when they've come to me at consultation, I'm like, right, do this, 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 and this, and this. And it's all, the hand-eye coordination is always in there. And I can see by their face, they're like, that ain't going to work. And then they'll come back and they're like, oh my God, I didn't think that was going to work. And it's worked. So that half an hour can really, really make such a massive difference. So things like puzzles, Play-Doh, any sensory play, even kids have even put like makeup on their parents or brushing their hair, massage, anything at all that is fingertip movement, building blocks, games, board games, card games, anything at all, hand-eye. And obviously the activities need to be age appropriate and interesting. Lego is another one that's a firm favourite. But sometimes we do have to be super creative with what we're doing here. As I've said, no screens in the hour before bed. So any time prior to that, it's absolutely fine. But the hour before bed is the only time really that you need to, put the phones away and stuff. Avoid giving blackcurrant drinks, chocolate, Coke or coffee. So blackcurrant irritates the bladder. So it can mean that you need to get up to the toilet more often. And then obviously chocolate and Coke have got loads of sugar in, and coffee has got caffeine in, which will affect the sleep pressure and the ability to be able to nod off. Bath time with big massive question marks, because we're sold this theory that if we use a lavender bubble bath and make it all lovely and bubbly, that children are going to get in there and come out and be really chilled and go to sleep, and it's not really a reality for some children. So bath time can be super stimulating and can be a really exciting time if it is, or can be really stressful as well. If it is any of those things, scrap it from the hour before bed and do it earlier. If, however, bath time is really relaxing, then perfect, keep it in place. Keeping hugs, kisses and stories to the same length each night. Children will use distractions and I had one lady and she had to kiss all of her children's teddies, and she said she had about 120 teddies. She spent an hour and a half in the bedroom giving each teddy a kiss goodnight, because they're clever, aren't they? They're like, right, what can I do to keep her in the room? And their brain's ticking over and they're always one step ahead of you. So having really concise kind of that end of bedtime stuff can be really, really, really good for ending the evening. Using a set phrase at sleep time. So this, I would say, is one of the, again, another really massively huge component for parents to feel confident and empowered, because we often don't know what to do when our children are asking us or trying to distract us, and it's like your brain's whizzing, isn't it, thinking, right, I shouldn't be responding to this, but I don't know what to say because they're saying this and that. So having a key set phrase that is reassuring, responsive, but also very concise can be helpful. And depending on your child's kind of level of learning and understanding, depends on what kind of phrase you would use. So for example, if it was a child that had very limited understanding, you would just use something like it's bedtime. For a child that perhaps had struggled a little bit more with anxiety and that separation, worrying about whether you're going to be there in the morning, you would use something like, good night, sweetheart, I love you very much, I'll see you in the morning, and really reiterate that you're going to see them in the morning. So it's about knowing your child, but from bedtime, so from sleep time, that is the only thing that you say to your child until it's morning. So regardless of what they're asking for, you use the same set phrase every single time. So you're responding to them, but the response is redirecting them to what the expectation is. And actually, I had a family call me a couple of weeks ago, and their little boy, she did the set phrase for night one. She must have said it 150 times. And on night two, the little boy said, I'll go straight to sleep if you stop saying them words to me. And then he went straight to sleep from night two. So it can be really, really effective. Sometimes not for the reason you expect, but it can be really effective. Making environments look different from day and night, which I've already said. So making sure the light is dimmed, which really helps that signal in the brain to produce melatonin. using music, like I said, so particularly where children will struggle to come from electronics, using music as a transition can be really helpful, or like I say, an audiobook. And smell as well. If your child is is very sensory aware of smells, using something like lavender, chamomile, that kind of thing at night time can just help to support the understanding that nighttime is coming. Visual timetables and social stories, again, to back up this understanding, can be really useful. And using lights on timer switches to indicate morning time. So having the lights come on, or going in and turning the lights on, opening the curtain. Like I say, 4 minutes of daylight exposure is enough to really suppress that melatonin and get all of us. I've started going in the garden at 6:30 because I was getting a bit sluggish in lockdown, and honestly it's made such a difference to my day because I feel just bright and alert from just going in the garden and having my cup of tea. So thinking about the room, so is the bed comfortable? Are the sensory needs being met? Is the room comfortable? So, or is there quite a lot going on? Is it quite busy? That's really, really important when we're looking at bedrooms. If your child likes to be in small spaces, could you get a little tent that you clip over the bed to help keep that space small, which will again help with that proprioceptive sense. So does your child like quiet as well? So I've said about white noise for distractions, but some children just really don't like silence and they can find it quite difficult. And then what happens when it's silence is your brain starts overworking and you get yourself quite anxious, and then you can't get to sleep because that overrides the melatonin. So white noise can be really effective for that as well. And I remember watching a program, and there was a little lad with ADHD. It was around sleep, and one of the professors was doing it, and they were saying that actually for children with ADHD, doing 2 things at once can be really helpful to their brain. So playing something in the background is actually helpful to sleep and conducive to sleep. Pink noise as well has been researched, and it actually helps to consolidate sleep and go through the sleep cycles. So pink noise is a more consistent sound. It's like a shh constantly throughout the whole night, but really effective. Is the bedroom tidy? I mean, is the bedroom tidy? If you've got a teenager, I've got an 11-year-old, her bedroom never tidy. And actually, does your child like it being tidy? Is the bedroom comfortable for them? So have they got their bits where they want the bits to be? And, are they getting stressed or worked up about stuff that's out of place or that kind of thing? The correct temperature should be between 16 and 18 degrees, and it should be calming and not stimulating. So I worked with a family once who had a massive Hulk on the bedroom wall. I mean, it was beautiful wallpaper, but it literally took over the whole wall. Very, very stimulating for this particular child. So keeping it quite neutral, but I'm not, if you haven't got a neutral bedroom, you don't have to go out and paint the bedroom and make everything white, but just kind of being aware about whether or not that is impacting on sleep. Oh, look at that, I'm a little bit over. So remaining positive can be really helpful. Being consistent, again, is really, really helpful for sleep. So doing the same thing over and over again. But yeah, knowing that you're empowered, and this really, really can make a difference to children. Okay, right, let's stop this.
Thank you very much. So that was great. It was so interesting.
It was a quick whiz through.
Yeah, I'm so impressed that you managed to get through so much.
Yeah, well, just wanted to give you as much practical stuff as I possibly could, yeah, because sleep just has such a massive impact on everybody. And I've seen this firsthand, families that have been in, really bad ways because they haven't slept for such a long period of time. And it's awful to see, especially as a sleep practitioner, when the answers are out there, but it's just getting that knowledge out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll open up for some questions.
Yes, that would be brilliant.
I can see that. Oh, we're getting a few straight away, which is great. We'll try and cover as many as we can. If there are any that we can't get through, we'll try and cover them, possibly on email or something like that afterwards. So I'll get straight into it, so I'm not wasting any time. So we've got the first question. Someone has said, "Hi, my daughter is 11 and wakes through the night once or twice a week and has tantrums as she's not able to settle herself and finds it hard. I settle her and I tell her to think nice things as she gets scary thoughts." So I think that's just a question in general about how to calm.
I would definitely look at whether there's a pattern with the nights as well. So if it's a couple of times per week, is it on set nights? So what's happening on those days, and is that impacting on the sleep? Sometimes watching electronics as well pre-bed can cause bad dreams as well, so definitely removing those electronics the hour before bed can help with that, and having the distraction. So I would recommend for this family, I mean obviously I haven't got the full history, but I would definitely recommend having the noise on in the background to help kind of calm the situation, and then just offer reassurance. So when children are quite worked up in the middle of the night, practicing the breathing and stuff can be really helpful, because so there's a lot of talk about breathing, but what it does, it reminds the body that it's safe. So taking deep breath in, counting to 4, deep breath out, counting to 4, tells the body that you're safe and everything's okay. So if a child is feeling particularly stressed, that can be really helpful. I think that's what, anxious attachment.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a second question from Angela. So it's a two-parter. Anxiety in the night causes waking. If we are with her, so daughter, she barely wakes, but alone she's scared. Just to add, very, very anxious attachment. So do not want to leave her. We're all exhausted.
Yeah. And how old is she?
It doesn't say actually, Angela. If you want to write down, but we can't see right now, unless I'm missing something.
No. So here. 14.
14 with severe learning disability.
Yeah. So things like having something that smells of mum and dad in the bed, so like a transitional object, or piece of clothing, so something that mum or dad have actually worn that day to go to bed with. Having a photo of mum and dad as well close by. Mm-hmm. Depending on understanding, sometimes for anxious children it's worth developing like pass cards, so having a card where they can, so a physical something, so that they can kind of call mum or dad in, or go to mum and dad with their card, and they use that card to then be resettled. So it's about offering that reassurance as well through the night. And I suppose it would depend on, is this every night? Is it a habit? Is it a partial awakening? So do we need to look at the environment? Is anything changing in the environment from settling to sleep to when they wake up in the night? And just going back to basics as well with it. So really kind of thinking about that whole environment and the bedtime routine, having time as well. So I often say this, so children that do get quite stressed and worried during the night, developing time earlier on in the evening to talk about their worries, and doing some sensory stuff as well, so that real calming, rocking and that kind of thing that can really help to relieve anxiety.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sure that's helped. So we're going to go next. The question is from Peter, who said, my daughter is 8 and her sleep pattern can be very up and down, from going to bed at 8 and being asleep in 15 minutes to like last night, which was 3.5 hours. She will not go to sleep without me in the room, and so if she does wake up in the night, I have to be there. But again, this can happen some nights, and some nights not at all. It can happen some nights and other nights not at all. and sometimes it can be every hour
that she wakes up.
Yeah.
For Dad to be there. So it's so hard, isn't it? Because I want to go, oh, let me do a full assessment, because it's like snippets of information, isn't it? But what, again, going back to basics, looking at those pre-bedtime activities, what's happened in the day, is there any patterns to what's happening? So if some nights she's able to sleep through the night and then other nights not so much, what's happened that day? So really looking at what's happened that day, or what's coming the following day as well. So is there any worry or concern about the next day? A method, so often a method that we use, particularly when parents are absolutely exhausted, would be camping out. So that would be actually preparing a bed next to the child's bed so that everybody can get some sleep while the child builds their confidence, and then gradually moving out of the room. So that can be a really effective method if everybody is absolutely exhausted in the house, so that everybody can get some sleep, and then kind of building on it from there. It's really hard to implement changes when you're exhausted. So, the first protocol with almost every family that I speak to is definitely about getting some sleep, protecting some sleep.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Angela,
hopefully that helps some more, Peter. So the next question is from Dawn, who said, I'm an adult who lives with TSC, and I've always struggled to settle my brain. It's always active and I can't switch off. I can also get anxious from this. I've been known to go to work on 2 hours sleep and feel horrendous. So I think that's just general broad advice on anxiety there, I think.
Yeah, so again, it's that sleep hygiene, it's having a distraction, it's doing, so when on those nights when you are struggling to get to sleep, it's finding that thing that works for you. So, like mindful colouring books, sewing, reading, something easy. So mine is like a sloppy romance, but something easy reading that's not going to get your brain ticking over too much. And it's trying to, so by worrying about sleep, what you tend to do is create more of a sleep issue. So if you kind of accept that in this moment, I can't get to sleep, so I'm going to do this instead, and distracting yourself, it can help you to fall asleep more easily. As an adult, for children, we have to kind of do it for them. But for adults, just kind of accepting this is what's happening right now and doing things that you find good. Even like if I painting the nails and stuff in the night, just stuff that makes you feel better, that's fine finger, that's relaxing, and that can really help to then ease you back into a sleep cycle. Great,
thank you. Yeah, it's often a vicious circle, isn't it? It's a completely separate issue, but I have tinnitus in my ears, so the constant buzzing. The more you think about it and talk about it and try to get help and understanding for it, the worse it is, and it's I'm sure it's a similar thing. But anyway, let's see how many more questions we can get through before we finish. So we've got another one here from Rachel, who says, my 11-year-old won't sleep beyond 4:30 to 5, irrespective of what time she goes to bed. Tried different bedtimes for several weeks, blackout blinds. So it sounds like a good few different things that they've tried. She's exhausted by 4, and her behaviour goes downhill. And they can't seem to break the pattern. It's been going on since she was born. So again, I think getting that routine in.
And there is like a genetic predisposition to be what's known as a lark, which is an early morning riser. But what I would probably do is go back from the wake up time so that they're getting enough sleep. So setting bedtime to, I'd say 6. So sleeping from 6 till 4:30. Really back it up with some visuals around waking up, something like a grow clock. I don't know if anyone's heard of a grow clock. They can be really, really useful. So they just got turned from blue to yellow. Setting the yellow, so setting the sun to come up at say 4:30, and then in 15-minute increments increments, kind of pushing it forward, but also pushing the time that you fall asleep forward as well, the child falls asleep forward as well. So just doing it in tiny snippets as opposed to trying to get, so sometimes it can be unrealistic to kind of get to 6 o'clock from 4:30. So it might just be 15-minute increments for even a week and then pushing forward. So really stabilising that at both ends and then pushing through it. White noise can often help with early morning waking. So the first two things I always look at with early morning waking is the bedroom dark, and have they got any noise on? Because the birds are definitely out at 4:30. Our melatonin levels are the lowest that they're going to be. So we are coming to the end of our sleep cycle. Melatonin is really dropping off at this point. So you're very much more easily woken.
Thank you, Kerry. I definitely have that. There's a tiny little slip in my blind where it 6:30 every morning, it just comes through and straight away it wakes me up. Yeah. Every morning I think I need to fix that, and every morning I don't. But as soon as we finish the day, I'm going to go and do it.
You can get magnets and things now, I think, that you put on windows to hold the blinds against the. Sure, I saw Mrs. Hinch or someone doing it.
I'll have to have a look. Right, so we've got a couple more questions. We'll try and squeeze through them before we finish, because I know we're overrunning a bit now. So first one from Anna, who I'm sure this reflects on a lot of people at the moment as well, saying my anxiety is really bad at the moment. I can sleep during the day, no problem, with naps and things, I imagine, but never at night. So is there any tips there?
Yeah, so if you're napping in the day, I'd say first of all, cut out your naps during the day, because that will really reduce sleep pressure. Again, doing those wind down activities. So I think as well with anxiety, what people often do from the back of having anxiety is we try and do everything all at once. So, we'll try all this self-care stuff, but almost overload ourselves with self-care. Do you know what I mean? Like, so try and do yoga, breathing, meditation, all of this stuff all at once, which can sometimes work in the opposite way. So it can sometimes exacerbate that anxiety. So thinking about the things that you really enjoy, things that really help to keep you calm, whatever that may be, and doing lots more of them during the day. And then definitely the hour before bed the hour before sleep is honestly so crucial. If I was looking at, so on a one-to-one basis, we might look into sleep restriction and stuff as well. But that wouldn't be something kind of we can talk about over here.
No, that's great. Thank you. So we've got one last question, and then I'll wrap up. So this is from Glind. So hi, my son is 8. He goes to bed it's at 8 p.m. each night, but is awake from 3 a.m. We'll put him back to bed. He's up every 30 minutes wide awake. We put the sensory light on to read to him. He's on 3 anti-epileptic meds. He's also on the keto diet, which a lot of people who live with TSC are on, with those who also live with epilepsy. Just can't get him to sleep any longer. Not sure what else to try. They did have a sleep practitioner for a week, which worked quite well, with the same routine and things like that. But he won't go to sleep any later, and any ideas would be great.
Yeah, so he's only sleeping from 8:30 till 3. Is he napping during the day as well? I suppose that's what.
Yeah.
And it's whether or not it's seizure activity that's waking him. So how well controlled is the epilepsy would be the other thing that I'd be looking at. Definitely, like I said, I feel like a broken record, but definitely that noise as well in the background. So is there something else disturbing him that's waking him up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because it is quite light at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning now. And what kind of response is he getting from 3? So that set phrase, so using that set phrase can be honestly really, really powerful. example, and then again having a realistic time to wake up for him. So, you know, even if you could get him to stay in bed until 4 initially, for example, and then make it later. So, you know, kind of retrain him when he comes out of bed. So only having that response, the set phrase response, until whatever time you set, and then pushing it later. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. Yes, I think it does.
The early morning wakings are tough, you know, really, really hard.
Yeah, great. Well, that's all the questions that we have right now. So it's just to say again a big thank you to Kerry. It's been so helpful, and all the tips and the reinforcement, and it's great to get some real strategies and things for people to actually do as well. That's something that we're always keen for. Definitely.
I hope it has been helpful, because it's hard to squeeze all this into like 45 minutes because it's just such a massive broad subject, but that's why I want to get as many, you know, kind of tips and practical strategies that you can at least try and implement to try and make a difference.
Definitely. No, that's great. And this session will be recorded to everyone, so we'll get that up on our Facebook page and the website and things as soon as it's ready. Do just let me know if you've got any questions or anything afterwards as well. And do also find you remember as well, if you are dealing with any stress or anxiety, which is TSC related in particular, do remember we have our support line as well. Megan and our support line advisors are there. You don't need to have a specific question or anything like that. You can just feel like you need to give someone a ring. That's absolutely perfectly fine. That's what it's there for. So again, I'll just say another big thank you to...
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for coming as well. It's been my absolute pleasure.
That's great. Okay, thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.